another side of him that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. So, yeah, you're right. This is a great thing. Going back to the game for a second, I want to talk about a few of the other things that caught my eye as far as people talking about this since we're doing this now. My thoughts about the offensive line are kind of mixed, but, John, I'll just say this. I mean, people complain about it, but they should remember that the one thing that the Titans do well, and we talked about it with Ralph, the boss, last week, that they rush the passer pretty well. And in person per pass attempts, they ranked third in the NFL going into this game. So the pass blocking to me was, at times, it was good, though, versus a very good pass rush. And a lot of the times, the problems were up the middle was where the changes were made. But the thing is, I don't automatically play David Andrews, but instability at this point isn't helpful. I think Shaq Mason had a few monster blocks. Overall, I'd say the offensive line gets a C. As far as the running backs are concerned, if you're not on a James White bandwagon, I think you need to get on before it leaves because he's been really, really good. Second quarter, 30-yard touchdown after Keyshawn Martin had a big kickoff return. He changed direction. He looked really good. I like James White. Brandon Bolden's also starting to come around, and he averages 3.6 yards a carry, and he's also starting to improve, and he's slowly gone from being a special team standout to a pretty good all-around back. He also caught 2 passes for 18 yards, which, maybe he might have to go back to special teams with the player that we will talk about in just a few minutes. But, John, the offensive line and the running backs, what did you think about them?
Look, I thought the offensive line did a pretty good job for the first time in I'd say 2 or 3 weeks. I thought they really took care of business the way that they were supposed to. And, they gave Brady enough time to be able to go downfield and carve up that secondary, which, frankly, is not very good. I think as far as the running backs go, the kid that really caught my eye is obviously the kid from Hawaii, off the practice squad, Giuseppe, who came out of nowhere and ended up being the leading rusher for this team. It does speak to another aspect of the Patriots personnel department. I mean, Giuseppe came from a league known as the FXFL, which just finished its second year of operation. He played Shaq down in your neck of the woods with the Brooklyn Bolts for at least a month or so before he finally ended up on the Patriots practice squad. It's just another indication of how this football team is able to find players in different venues that can eventually help them to keep this machine rolling. I'd be curious as to what kind of attention Giuseppe got while he was down there in Brooklyn, and what the Patriots may have seen in him that eventually led to Sunday's performance.
That's interesting. I didn't know that there was a league called the XFL. I don't know what you said, but it sounds interesting. Maybe I need to follow this team because I've never heard of that. But that's interesting. Josh, the adopted son of the Flying Elvis Faithful, which I think you know the name I'm about to say, Logan Ryan. He had I'd say it was a bad game, but you know what? I think he's earned a bad game, considering the season that he's had this year. Doyle Green Beckham, he's just a matchup nightmare for him, to be honest with you. So what did you think about Logan Ryan and the secondary as a whole? I think they did a pretty good job, considering there were a couple plays, essentially the Patrick Chung play, where you could say that really shouldn't have happened, and there are a few other plays as well. But what did you think about Logan Ryan in particular?
Oh, Logan Ryan didn't have a great game by any means. Doyle Green Beckham seemed to have his way with Logan Ryan in this game, and it was kind of surprising in a way. I didn't expect Doyle Green Beckham to be all that big of a part of the offense. I thought New England would have their way with their receivers all together, but Beckham had a good game, and, good on him. But overall, the secondary was Malcolm Butler played great, in my opinion. Logan Ryan was just average, and the Chung played good until he got hurt. And, I mean, he wasn't great either, but he definitely was involved making tackles for sure. I guess if I were to give the grade to the secondary, it would be like a C+ or a B- because they did give up 242 yards to Zach Mettenberger. So, I mean, you got to be a little bit realistic, although the game was kind of out of hand when he came in. But still, I think New England has one issue, and they need to me, it's closing out games is the issue. They seem to let teams linger around when they should be putting them away.
Yeah, there's no question. I think Josh is correct. I mean, this is go back to the Jacksonville game in which the Patriots scored 51 points and then really just put Jacksonville out of their misery. And yet you look at this game, and even though they scored 33 points, you never got the impression that the Titans will really put out their misery the way they could have been or maybe even should have been.
Yeah.
And do you think that was the result of, I don't know if it was a defensive pass interference or something like that happened to Patrick? Do you think that was a result of that, or maybe it's just the Patriots, having their heads and stuck up their behinds?
Well, I think they took their foot off the gas pedal at an early stage of that second half. I think once Mariota left that game with the injury and Zach Mecklenburg came in, I think the foot came off the gas pedal, and although it never came back to haunt them, I do think that's a style of play that they do need to kind of get away from. That game was there to be had. It was certainly an opportunity for an easier afternoon for this football team, but again, their inability to put Tennessee away allowed and forced them to play that game longer and a bit more seriously than maybe it deserved to be.
And one more thing for me in this game, how about an attaboy for Chandler Jones? 2 more sacks for him, one of strip with Mariota to allow Hicks to grab it for a touchdown, what really stood out to me is that the defense is finally starting to turn the ball over and get points off it, which I think will pay a lot of dividends in the playoffs. People point out that Chandler Jones has been fouled the last 4 weeks, but they really overlooked that he's drawn double teams on almost every play during that time because the Patriots were without Dante Hightower and Jamie Collins. So I think that he's done really well for himself, Chandler Jones has, and it was just great to see. He has a career-high 12.5 sacks. I think he has 2 more to tie the Patriots single-season record, so that would be pretty good if he could get to that. So, Josh, talk about Chandler Jones.
He's been amazing. He made that one play on the pass from Mariota in the highlights at the beginning of the show. I don't even know how he just reached out, knocked the ball out of Mariota's hand, and Akeem Hicks recovered in the end zone. That was a great play on Chandler Jones' part, and actually the whole pass rush on New England is the thing that seems to be coming around most for me now that the secondary is kind of taking a little bit of beating with injuries. I think the pass rush has stepped up, and that's a good thing because they're going to have to be involved quite a bit in the playoffs to beat some of these better teams like the Steelers or if the Steelers make it to play New England or whoever, the teams that are passing the ball quite well in the AFC right now. So
I thought the front seven played very well on Sunday, and I do think that that's a very positive sign. This team continues their consecutive streak of sacks per game, which they've done every game this season. And you're right, that's going to be a key for them going forward. The front seven is going to have to continue to put pressure on whoever the quarterback happens to be that they face on a given day, especially when we get to the playoff time, because that's going to make the life of the secondary an easier one to manage, and may even help this offense to continue to run at full steam, just based on the mix and the injuries that they possess, and who can be available on any given Sunday for them.
It's funny, John. We were talking about this just last week, and it's very interesting that the Patriots are leading the league in sacks, but all the talk in the offseason was for the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins were to strengthen up the front seven to hit Tom Brady in the mouth. And look what the Patriots are doing. They're hitting everybody else in the mouth. I just think that's hilarious to me.
We talked about this last week, and I will say, some teams know how to spend their money wisely, and the Patriots are one of those teams, I think, that are at the top of that class. And then you have other teams that don't necessarily know how to spend their money, and I think the other teams in this division certainly would be put in that category.
You know what, a stat I saw today, and it's important for me to say this because a stat New England's leading the NFL in is they have 70 different starters on their team this year, and then you look at who's in second behind New England, and that would be the Baltimore Ravens, who have 69 different starters this year, and the contrast in records versus us and the Ravens, it just goes to show you what a good job, and we mention this all the time, that everyone involved in New England's coaching staff and scouting, and they're just doing an amazing job all around.
Yeah, I do think the scouts of this football team and the personnel department of this team does not get enough credit for being able to find players to plug holes when those holes need to be plugged.
And John, I know you're familiar up there with the shows up there in the media talking about the cap is crap and all the other stuff that they talk about. So I just think it's very interesting the way the two teams, like you mentioned, Josh, the Baltimore Ravens and New England Patriots contrast. Just very, very interesting to go back.
Look, guys, I mean, up here, the media is always going to hold the Patriots to a pretty high standard because they've really set that bar that high. So, anytime guys go down and you have that next man up philosophy that, this team lives and dies by, it's always interesting that they seem to find the next guy that can at least plug that hole in a short-term fashion well enough to keep the machine running.
All right, guys, let's move on from this Titans game, and let's talk about a guy who is just being added to the New England Patriots, and that is one Steven Jackson. The terms of the contract weren't announced, but it was announced yesterday that the Patriots released defensive lineman Ishmael Kitchen, and Steven Jackson, who's 32 years old, is a veteran of 11 NFL seasons, and that's with the St. Louis Rams from 2004 to 2012, the Atlanta Falcons from 2013 to 2014. He's 6'2", 240 pounds, and guys, my initial impressions of this move is I am stoked about this move, and now I'll give myself a little bit of leeway here because going back to August, I was kind of happy about the Reggie Wayne signing for the New England Patriots, and we saw how long that lasted, all of 2 minutes. So, but I think that this move will be a little bit more long-winded as far as what Steven Jackson can offer to the team. And, John, there's a player that kind of contrasts what I think that Steven Jackson can do, and that's Antoine Smith. I tweeted this out. I've talked to anybody who want to listen to me about this. I think that if Steven Jackson can give us what Antoine Smith did in 2001, I think that would just be over the moon. What do you think about it?
Well, the concern I have about Steven Jackson is the fact that nobody else was interested in him up until now. Why is that? You mentioned he's 32 years of age. He might be on the back end of his career. The Patriots are only asking for a short-term commitment from him, so maybe that's how and why this can work. But I am a bit concerned about the fact that nobody else is interested in him up until now.
Josh, I mean, this for a minimum vet pickup, I think this is good. But what do you think about it? Do you think that he can be the big bruiser, or do you think that he'll be able to do something else, or do you think he'll wane out?
Well, I think actually Steven Jackson he's versatile because people don't know this, but he had 90 receptions in 2006 when he played for the Rams. Now, granted, we're talking that's over almost 9 years ago, but he's actually can catch the ball out of the backfield, so he also adds that something that LeGarrette Blount hasn't offered. Now, okay, how good is Steven Jackson going to be when he joins this team? That we don't know. I mean, it's hard to project, and I hope that he's everything that we hope he is, but I guess that would be too high of an expectation. So what I'm hoping is he's adequate and he's able to, pound the ball and make plays, and hopefully, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now he's running the ball pretty decently going to the playoffs, because he hasn't played at any downs yet this year. So he's definitely going to need time to get in the groove. And then, of course, there's New England's playbook that, although I don't know how hard it is for a running back to take a handoff and run it towards the hole, but there definitely is some things he has to, learn about what New England does when he's out on the field. So
I mean, look, this is not a run-oriented football team to begin with, and that might be to his benefit.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's not necessarily in football shape and how long it's going to take him to get into football shape could be a bit of a concern, and I would think that's why if the Patriots can secure this Sunday's game against the Jets and go to Miami and pretty much just play that game like a preseason game, that you may see a heavy dose of Steven Jackson just so that they can kind of speed up the process of getting him into shape if, in fact, they really believe that he can help them with the playoff run.
See, for me, when LeGarrette Blount went down, we lost our best between the tackles running guy. Neither Brandon Bolden, James White, or even Joe Yosefa are that kind of a back. I think Joe Yosefa was the closest thing to LeGarrette Blount, but even he seems to lack the kind of torque and power to just go full bore straight down to punch a hole in the defensive line. I think Steven Jackson is just what we need. I think it's a big body. It's a goal line force to pound it through. And Josh, you mentioned that he's a good receiver out of the backfield. As a pass catcher, you can't sleep on him. He has 460 catches, 3,600 yards. He needs 60 more, and he's in the top 20 all-time for all-purpose yards. And Belichick has been a favorite of his since he entered the league. And prior to a 2012 game against the Rams, he spoke diligently about Steven Jackson and the time he spent with him prior to the draft. So I just think it's a very interesting move. I think the most we would need out of him is 4 games, but he signed for a year. So hopefully he'll be able to give us more. But for 4 games, I say, why not? Well, shoot the hip, you might as well go for it.
Well, no, I agree. I think the signing for 4 games is it's a wise move by this football team, absolutely. I just don't think that people's expectations for what Steven Jackson can give this team should really be all that high, just based on his lack of football shape and really having not played at all this year. I think that you need to tone down the expectations for him. And look, all you really want is him not to make any mistakes based on the lack of knowledge he has of the playbook and the personnel that he's playing with. And if he can do all that, then I think this will work out very nicely.
Well, the thing about him is, I think there was a stat I saw that in about